Welcome to Thriving in the Digital Age, your go-to guide for navigating the ever-changing world of business, technology, and innovation. With your host, Joe Crist, a seasoned entrepreneur and tech enthusiast, here to connect you with the leaders shaping our future. Discover the secrets to thriving in the digital age. Each week, we'll dive into practical insights, cutting-edge strategies, and the latest trends to help your business not just survive, but truly thrive in today's digital world.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another Thriving in the Digital Age. I'm your host, Joe Crist. Joining me today is Craig Kihlström. Craig, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me here. Looking forward to chatting with you. So my name is Craig Kihlström. I am the host of the Agile Brand podcast. I also work as a consultant for Fortune 1000s. I work primarily in the marketing and marketing technology spaces, helping organizations with digital transformation, adoption, agile transformation, all of the above. So I've done a lot. I'm a former marketing agency owner, sold my company about 7 years ago, and since then really work independently. And between that and writing some books and doing some speaking and the podcast, keep myself busy here.
Yeah, sounds like it. So that's interesting, though, right? So you're really focusing on the MarTech space. So when it comes like agile adoption, even digital transformation, right? Both are very difficult things. Like, what are the challenges you're really seeing out there that not only that you deal with, but your clients are dealing with as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all comes down to there's this cliche about breaking down silos and all that stuff, but I keep saying, at least recently, just because it's a cliche doesn't make it untrue. And so there are, I'm seeing a lot of process changes that need to happen because, in marketing, I'm sure you could apply this in any area, but, in marketing, there's just so much changing right now. Everything is increasingly digital, even non-digital marketing is being managed in a digital way. And with AI and increased AI adoption, there's a further need for better data and more access to data. And there was always a need for data, but so these process silos, these data silos, and just the nature of the marketing role is such that you need to know a little bit more about all of the different areas of the business, not just one specific area. The days, I think, of the purely like social media marketer or SEO or name your channel. I think there's going to be specialties, but everybody needs to know a little bit more about what others are doing, and that extends beyond marketing into marketing needs to understand what technology is doing and what data is doing and what sales and customer service is doing. So silos are just, again, it's a business cliche, but it's still happening, and these things need to be solved, especially the more that AI and the need to have data shared across the org is just increasing.
Yeah, no, I 1,000,000% agree. And the big challenge with silos, right? It's a lot of organizations that have a really old way of thinking or just been around for a long time, or especially when they grow, they never really figure out that communication, right? It's becomes, this is my job, this is what I do. I don't really care about anything else. But in reality, for a company to really function, like there needs to be crosstalk between different disciplines and the different like groups, right? It's technology impacts marketing, marketing impacts operations, sales impacts operations, everything impacts one another. But when you actually break those silos down, you're communicating faster. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's really the point of agility, right? Is to break down those communication barriers and give organizations the speed of execution to really make things happen, to make them competitive.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that I like about the agile principles and things like that. But one of the ones that I like best is just this idea of a shared purpose. And that's talked about in terms of like a product team, like a small team that's all kind of working together. But I look at that much more broadly in terms of some of the reasons why these silos continue to exist is the incentive structure and the goals that are set for each of these little siloed teams, even teams within departments, and product teams within divisions, however big or small your company is, you're probably feeling this at some level. The incentive structure of, we're graded on how many people open an email, and these other people over here are graded on how many new sales contacts they get. You can pick any team within the org, and they all have different incentive structures and different goals. Why would there be any alignment between them if this continues?
Absolutely. You know what? Nail on the head right there. And that's a big challenge I've seen where it's you have people in leadership roles because they're being graded against whatever metrics. It's how does this help them in their department if some other team is like whatever they're doing doesn't actually directly impact, right? And
Yeah.
all of that, right? It's how these individuals are being graded on success, right?
Yeah.
It's just totally different everywhere around. And because of that, it's hard to speak the same language, right? It's hard to have the same because everyone is evaluated totally differently.
Yeah. And I think this is where, to be honest, I've read a fair amount, and I've written a fair amount on Agile and different applications of Agile. But I think one of the areas that is the least well documented and the least well defined is this concept of business value. And right, so like the product owner is supposed to interpret requirements. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but like they're supposed to interpret business value in terms of requirements and all that kind of stuff and prioritize. But there isn't a very clear definition of what exactly business value is. And I think from organization to organization, definitely it can vary. Business value is going to be very different in a healthcare organization versus financial services or, a retail company, of course. So like there's going to be variation, but I don't think that there's often a clear definition of what business value is, even within a single organization. And so again, another one of those siloed things of like we have incentive structures, we have teams kind of working against each other, and we don't even know what we're all working towards.
Yeah. And I mean, how could you be aligned if you don't even have the same agreement of terms of like what the journey looks like? How could anyone even begin to get along? Right. Because like, we're doing this, or we're doing this. And then if things aren't working, you start blaming other people. It's like, oh, we can't do it here. But it's that misalignment early on. It's catastrophic down the road. And it makes it even harder.
Yeah. And I mean, again, in the context of Agile, these product owners are charged with interpreting something that varies depending on who you ask. I mean, we know that a corporation is going to want to make money, but how they do it and how they interpret overall success. I mean, I'm a huge proponent of looking at customer lifetime value as one of those key KPIs, but not every organization is there yet. Everybody says the customer experience is important, and more and more companies are competing based on the experience they provide to their customers. There is not again, you could ask 10 different organizations for their definition of customer lifetime value. I guarantee you they calculate it differently and they value it differently in terms of priority. And I think it's a missed opportunity. I think there's some really smart leaders out there that are getting on the right train here as far as looking at that, but there's still many that are lagging behind. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Sorry. I think I lost you for a second. I'm
Okay.
back now. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Edit that out.
It froze for a minute. I don't know if it was me but yeah.
No, it's okay. It doesn't matter. No, but customer lifetime value is a really big deal, right? It's understanding really, because everybody cares about, having that great customer experience, right? Everybody wants their customers to be happy, but what I've seen with a lot of companies is they only get to the point where it's, okay, hey, they're happy now and they bought from us. Let's just move on to the next customer. I was like, no, you want to stick with the same customer and keep delivering value, because if they're making more money or they're more profitable for what you do,
right,
you can still benefit from that. Right. And now they already have the relationship established. But yeah, I do see a lot of companies just they focus more on the going wide as opposed and the hunting, right, of new customers, where really you should be farming, right? Continue to grow what you already have.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, anybody, I've done sales too much in my life. Anyone that's done sales knows it's a lot easier to keep an existing customer than it is to win a new one. But I mean, again, this kind of goes back to that incentive structure of, sales teams. If they're incentivized by new customer acquisition, then, what are they going to do? Like if that's how they're graded, they're going to bring in new customers and not necessarily check all the boxes to make sure they're going to have a lifetime loyal customer. They're just going to they're going to sign new people up. And, we've probably seen high profile examples of how that can be problematic in, financial services and other areas. But, it's not smart business when you have the opportunity to bring in great customers, keep them loyal and build their value over time. And I think another concept that category leaders that I know of and work with are adopting as well is this idea of employee lifetime value as well. So thinking about the value of, there's a cost to losing an employee. Anyone in HR or, any hiring managers know that, it takes a lot to replace an employee that leaves. And so retain it. There's knowledge loss. There's just productivity loss. There's morale loss for the existing team. So, there's a cost to all of this stuff. And so, thinking about customer lifetime, employee lifetime, it kind of all builds up to this idea of like the business lifetime value as well, which, I don't know that a lot of organizations are thinking like that yet, but I hope that they will, because that also includes some things like how sustainable an organization can be over time, whether that's sustainable with people or other resources or, pick a category. But, there's a lot of ways of looking at business value again, but, the more nuanced you can kind of make it, the better.
Right. Yeah. With that, what I found to be interesting too, it's when you really do focus on employee engagement and customer engagement, right? You still with me?
Yeah. I'm here.
Okay. When you focus on employee engagement and customer engagement, one of the biggest things people don't think about, right? Because everybody wants better talent, everybody wants better employees, right? It's the whole idea of like, maximizing. But in reality, when you focus really on having good quality engagement on both sides, right? It really does help the business. It also lowers your acquisition. All the conferences you may go to, or all the hands you may shake, or all the dinners you may take somebody out to, like that adds up. Right. So by treating somebody right, like managing their expectations, giving them what they want to actually provide value, that's huge. Right. And that's what keeps, good customers, great customers hooked. And the same thing with great employees, right? They want to know they're going to be taken care of. So,
yeah. I mean, it's
like
also
obviously been in the industry for a while. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, it's also, even from a data collection standpoint, I mean, it's a lot easier to learn more about what, an existing customer wants and needs and how they value your product or service than it is to continually kind of go out and try to win new customers and hope that they sign up in the first place. So, I mean, there's ways to look at retaining customers as a way to continually improve your products and services as well. Again, it doesn't mean by any means that you should not try to acquire new customers. It's just the mix, I think, is often off of the focus of sales, and the focus of marketing is often on acquiring new versus retaining, and understanding loyalty.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, obviously there's a lot of different things that organizations deal with, right? What steps can organizations start taking even today to really start improving their position, like when it comes to agility and even really working in the digital age?
Yeah, I mean, I think given I think AI is like the thing that everybody's focusing on a lot right now, and there's some hype, there's a lot of hype, but there's some really good reasons why it's so many people are talking about it. But I think in order to use it best, it also solves some of the problems that we're talking about as well. And so it's kind of a twofer in the sense of people need to understand what the person sitting next to them does a lot more than they ever did. Like humans, the more that we have machines and AI doing repetitive tasks and kind of the lower level tasks for us, the more that we humans are going to have to understand, what are the more strategic things? What are the bigger picture questions that we should be asking? And that means kind of getting out of the corner that you may be in, and just focusing on the tactics and tasks at hand, and really understanding from a bigger picture what needs to get done. And that also happens to solve some of these silo issues of, if we really understood what the person next to us was doing, and we're able to empathize with our coworkers first, then we start understanding, oh, okay, well, if I do this a little bit differently, it becomes smoother for that team that we deal with every day, but I don't actually know what they do, or whatever. And then if we look at that as empathizing with the customer as well, like there's teams that their job, customer service's job is to deal with customers, but everybody's job is customer experience. Like I think if everybody wraps their head around that, whether you're writing code, or whether you're directly talking with customers, if you're frontline employee at a restaurant or retail or whatever, like everybody's job is customer experience. And so it comes down to a little bit of curiosity, a little bit of empathy, and a little bit of just, let's learn a little bit more about what the person next to us is doing.
No, absolutely. And that brings up an interesting point, though. And it's something I've kind of adopted over the years. It's identifying who that customer is. The customer may not always be, that person who's buying the product. It could also be the team you're working with, right? Because they are stakeholders as well. And so by like, hey, this is the person I'm trying to help here. It could be the guy on the marketing team. It could be the guy in ops. It could be, the girl who's writing code. It could be all sorts of people, right? But you really need to be taking this approach where it's just like, hey, you're doing this for this person. You need to understand their wants and their needs, right? And also how they work and what they care about, right? It's gone are the days of saying, hey, we made something, we hope people want it. Like, you need to be customer centric in nature, where it's just saying, this is what this person cares about. This is what I can deliver to them, right? Because the value is not just felt by one; it's felt by everyone both upstream and downstream of that person.
Yeah, and I think when good leaders understand, I totally agree with what you're saying here. Good leaders understand that concept as well of, there's internal customers and there's external customers. I think, again, at the end of the day, everyone needs to serve that end customer. But to your point, like there's a lot of other collaboration and internal customers and success that isn't just, how am I doing on my job for me? It's like, how are we doing as a team, and how are we as a team supporting others to that end goal? So, it's a lot of, understanding that you're part of a much bigger system, and caring that you're part of a much bigger system. That's a lot of that falls on leaders to kind of engender in their employees is, why do we care? If all you care about is your paycheck and showing up and getting a bonus at the end of the year, then I don't think your leader is instilling the right things in you and your team. And, that's a short-term churn kind of situation. But if doesn't mean like salaries, bonuses, all that stuff, hugely important, and people should get paid what they're, what they need and what they want. But they also need to be working towards a common goal, or else a company is just going to keep churning through people, and employees are going to be unhappy and customers are going to feel it.
Culture is one of the most important things for any leadership, like structure in a company. And then I think it's actually one of the most important jobs of a CEO, right? To have the right culture. And it's something that's very overlooked, right? Because if you don't define the culture, it will define itself, and it may not be what you want, right? So is there anything you've tried in the past to really like shift culture? Because I know it's no easy task, but have you found anything in particular that works?
Yeah, I think there's some relatively easy things that any leader or manager can start doing, which is, one thing I recommend is to look at your teams. Everybody has a job description, right? And it's this like laborious task of like, make sure it's accurate to what you do or whatever. Managers should look at the job descriptions of their team members and find a way to make it align to the end goal of the organization. Find a way. There's that classic story of like the janitor at NASA that was like, cleaning toilets or whatever, but like his job in his mind was to help send people to the moon, and that was 100% true. Yes, he also cleaned stuff and whatever, but like everyone in that organization was responsible for the mission of the organization. And I think to me, that's such an inspiring story. And that means that anyone on any team, you could be in marketing, you could be on any part of the organization. Like if you can't see your way and, a straight line to the mission of the organization, your manager and your leader are not doing their job. So I think that's one way to start. And then the other is to just always reinforce what the mission of the organization is, even if it's to make money. Like as long as everyone knows what that mission is, it could be a very simple one, but at least everybody's working towards the same goal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've seen that a lot too, where there is so much like misalignment on like what the actual mission is. And it's, I've heard this, it's called the perfect problem statement, right? So it's a who, what, when, where, who, yeah. Well, what, when, where, and impact. So what is like the definition? We are doing this. It occurs in this location. It happens this many times a year. And here's the has. But when everybody can agree upon what that definition is of what we are trying to solve here's our problem. If we do our jobs right, we're going to have a decrease in location, we're going to have a decrease in frequency, and we're going to have a decrease in impact. Or if we want to do it the other way, right, we're going to have an increase in frequency, increase in location, increase in impact, right? But having that like agreement from the get-go is such a big deal, because the further you like, if you start misaligned,
yeah,
as time goes on,
exactly. I mean, there are so many decisions that have to be made in the course of a day that, to your point, you start diverging, and then all of a sudden you're one team is like one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing, basically. So the easier that a leader can make, I mean, that's just like practical common sense. That's not even, I mean, it's also building a good culture, but it's even like self-interest of just get your teams doing the right thing. So like, again, the less someone has to second guess or question, what am I supposed to be doing, the better results you're just going to get anyway. And then, additionally, you're also going to have people that are aligned like culturally and, and aligned to the overall success of the org. So, it's a win-win.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, like that alignment is a big deal. Is once you become misaligned, then your strategy begins to fall apart.
Right. Yeah.
So, I'm curious, right? Because I know, like I said, you've been in this for a while, right? You've seen a lot of different companies, experienced a lot of different challenges, and seen a lot of things that do work. When it comes to the future of like adopting Agile and even like digitally transforming a business, like where do you see the future headed? Like for those who are taking the steps and those who aren't?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's a number of schools of thought on, strictly you adopt some things or not. And I've talked with people on all sides of that debate. And so I tend to not think of myself as so much a purist that there's only one way to do things. And, I've talked with some others at very large orgs as well, where, some of these things, like there's principles to follow, and then there are things that different organizations just need slightly different things. But all that said, when you pick a way to do things, everyone should align to those ways and not have 20 different interpretations of Agile within the same organization. Again, how you do Scrum and how, or whatever flavor you're doing, like, I think there's interpretations of what works best and all those things. But as an organization, like the more you can all align on this is the way we do it, this is what works for us, the better alignment you're going to have. I don't know, as far as I think some organizations are not going to go like full Agile. I think a lot of companies call themselves Agile, and they're really just what I would call reactive, not agile. And that is not, just being nimble and reacting quickly to things is like a setup for chaos often, I mean, I look at Agile as a scientific process. I mean, it's it's very closely aligned with the scientific method of like, let's do something, let's test it, let's analyze the results, and then let's improve. I mean, that to me, that's the scientific method. So, when Agile is done well, it does make you more nimble. It does make you able to move more quickly, but it doesn't make you just move on a whim and, pivot this way and that and whatever. Like, there is structure to it when it's done well. And so I think, the more organizations can do that, the more successful they're going to be. The ones that kind of, blow with the wind or whatever, they're going to have a rough time. I mean, we're already seeing this reckoning of all these digital transformations that were like halfway through, whatever that even means, because I don't think transformation's ever done, but like they were halfway through some like 5-year thing, and then Chat GPT and generative comes out, and all of a sudden everybody's scrambling to like, well, we didn't think about AI when we started our transformation. So now what do? Well, the agile organizations, the actual agile organizations, are actually having a much better go of it because they had adaptability in place, and the waterfall, the agile in name only kind of organizations, they're struggling because they did some waterfall type plan 3 years ago, and now they're like, I don't know, let's throw Chat GPT on it and hope for the best.
Yeah, and I what I see a lot with them too, it's those who are kind of late to the party, where they're like, "Oh, here's a quick fix, we can do this," but they don't understand the technology at all.
Right.
Right. Like my approach, right, with digital transformation, it's people, process, then technology, right? They have to have the right people, the right skills in place to build the right processes that make sense. And then once those processes are built, you have the right technology to support it.
Right.
But it has to be in that order, right? And when you don't have like that, it's chaotic, it's expensive, and it's heartache for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. You end up, if you focus on technology first, you end up with really expensive licenses for things that you may or may not actually need or use more than 20% of, or all of those things. And then, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't have the most recent stats in front of me, but like the reason why most of these transformations fail, I mean, technology can always be implemented. I mean, there's a cost to it, but like technology can always be implemented at some cost. Where they fail are people, to your point, people not either knowing or being willing to adopt the processes that it takes to adopt those platforms. And maybe they weren't the right platforms in the first place, especially if you approach them first. So yeah, agreed.
Yeah. So, Craig, you know a lot, man. And then I really do appreciate everything you were able to share with us today. So I do have one last question for you, though. Sure. Based on your life and all the things you've experienced, if the audience could walk away with one piece of information or advice today, what would that be?
Yeah, I mean, I would say be curious about something that is tangential or, related to what you're doing, but not directly related. Just be curious about that and learn about it. I think it will help you. It might lead you down a path of learning something that you never knew you'd be interested in, but it might also just make you better at your job or make you more empathetic to the person or people that you're working with that are depending on you. So yeah, I would just say I try to live that in my own life. I try as much content as I put out into the world. I try to consume as much as well because I always need to be learning myself.
Yeah, I like that. I really do. Yeah, be curious is, you gotta keep growing in life, right? And if you have that fixed mindset where you're like, well, this is as far as I'm going to get, then obviously you'll never grow. But great. Thank you so much for joining us today. And to those out there listening, I really hope you appreciated this as much as I did. Definitely learned a lot here. Definitely feel a little more comfortable with Agile myself. And for those who have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. I'm going to add Greg's LinkedIn to the description, so feel free to check him out. The guy is an expert in Agile and a lot of other things. Yeah. Once again, everyone, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Thriving in the Digital Age. We hope today's episode gave you some great tips for navigating and rocking the digital world. Remember to hit subscribe for more awesome tips, strategies, and expert talks on thriving in the digital age. Stay connected, stay informed, and keep on thriving.